to grow food for its people. Another unconventional strategy is that we're ensuring that Pakistan's battle preparedness remains at an elevated level, so as to ensure that it spends a vast chunk of its resources, which it would have spent on guaranteeing education, social welfare for its people and building infrastructure, towards defense, diverting it towards defense. In fact, that's exactly what's happened today. Pakistan has had to spend 20% of its overall budget on defense issues, not on educating its people. So therefore, viewers, all bets are off. All bets are off, and therefore, viewers, alarm bells are ringing in security circles in the Union capital tonight. Top government sources have told your channel that ongoing multiple blasts aboard a Singapore-flagged ship called MV Wan Hai 503 are arousing immense concern. Those are the pictures, viewers. That doesn't look like an explosion caused by anything conventional. The ship that is on the verge of sinking is reportedly carrying a deadly cocktail of highly incendiary chemicals. I'm not suggesting for a moment, viewers, that it was carrying explosives, bombs, anything that could be targeted in India. All I'm saying is, viewers, that an explosion that big can take place in the most unexpected spaces. In fact, viewers, one source in government described this ship as a floating, ticking chemical time bomb. Not my words, the words of the source. The Indian National Centre for Ocean Information has issued an alert for the coast of Kerala due to potential oil spill and debris from the ship. The exact location of the stranded ship is 44 nautical miles of Arikal, Kerala. You can see it on the map, viewers. There it is. The ship was coming from Colombo Harbour, and somewhere around Kozhikode, Baipur Harbour, it reports a fire. It continues to drift, viewers, and it now is 44 miles off the coast of Arikal. From the visuals, you can see that the ship's explosions, and we can go back to those pictures, are massive. And they're serial almost. It just continues to explode. Some munition in there, viewers, constantly is sparking. Some fuel is constantly sparking a fresh explosion. Sources have told your channel that MV Wan Hai 503 was carrying a deadly cocktail of highly explosive chemicals loaded onto it in Colombo. The ship was transporting cargo categorized as dangerous goods. There was no definition, itemized, or a manifest that we are being told that was provided to port authorities. So dangerous goods could mean anything. Vessel had over 140 containers with hazardous substances. Cargo includes resin solutions, pesticides, and flammable solids. Some names, even though I was a science student, viewers, are difficult for me to pronounce, so I've just completely parked them aside. But we know that they are very inflammable. The cargo includes containers of methoxypropanol and isopropyl alcohol. Since the blaze, nearly 50 containers have fallen into the sea. And there's a risk, viewers, of contamination. Now, this ship could easily have docked at the Nhava Shehra in Navi Mumbai, that port there. And had it exploded there, it would have literally reduced the port to dust. And I just want you to think back, viewers, to Lebanon. There was a massive explosion there around the port. It just completely flattened that entire area out. Just as critically, India's new Adani Viringam port is finally operational. It is set to challenge the monopoly of the CCP-controlled ports along, viewers, the belt, the BRI initiative, like those in Lanka, Hong Kong, and also indirectly Singapore. This is bound to raise Chinese hackles. For decades, the left ecosystem, which some people say has ties to the CCP, the Communist Party of China, have tried to prevent the construction of the Adani port, citing a variety of reasons. Now, after it has finally opened, there's been an explosion of this magnitude aboard a ship originating from Chinese-controlled Lankan ports in the vicinity. This explosion follows another accident nearby a few days back when MSC Elsa 3 sank. Two major incidents within weeks of the Adani port opening. Viewers, you could say as a coincidence. The next time, it might not be coincidental. The Chinese cannot be trusted, especially as we have evidence of Beijing's behind-the-scenes moves to weaken India's defenses during Operation Sindoor by sharing real-time intelligence with Pakistan. It shared weapons platforms. It continues to resupply Pakistan. Why is it doing it, viewers? Because it knows that it needs to lock India down. India is rising too quickly for China's comfort. As of today, the Chinese government has thanked the Indian Coast Guard for the search and rescue operation. But the Chinese are masters at saying one thing and doing quite the other, at deception. Their ships have known to be dual use and snoop around the Indian Ocean region. Could they also, viewers, be Trojans? Viewers, there's a timeline. And this timeline itself throws up many questions, and I can't understand. Because I know there's concern, this is being communicated to us, why the Indian government hasn't come out with a formal statement. But I'm sure they're weighing it all up, viewers. I'm sure they're weighing it up. But on June 7th, the MV Wan Hai 503 departs Colombo Harbour. Who controls Colombo Harbour, viewers? It's the Chinese. And where does it go towards Navi Mumbai? On June 9, 10:30 a.m., the Indian Navy receives an alert of an underdeck fire. The fire reported 78 nautical miles from Port in Kerala. The Navy rescues crew members who abandoned the ship via boat. And there are pictures of that also. 18 crew members have been rescued, 4 are still missing, no one knows where they are. On June 10th, the Indian Navy and Coast Guard continue firefighting operations which are completely going against any conventional operation sense, because viewers, no one quite knows what is loaded onto these containers. And they all start exploding. Singapore Maritime Authority sends a team to aid the Indian Navy because the fire is so massive, the threat is so great. Authorities issue advisories for drifting containers and potential oil spill. And as of today, the more immediate worry is that the container ship is reported to be drifting south to southeast, and there is concern any oil pollution released would impact the areas of Kozhikode and Kochi. Viewers, this could be a massive environmental disaster that could push back tourism, it could push back a large number of fishing activities, put people out of jobs temporarily. It's a problem. It's a big problem. And we know, as I told you, the threats now, viewers, are not conventional. This is not the age or the era of conventional warfare. And therefore, viewers, we need to analyze what is happening. We also need to be prepared for eventualities. What, as I told you, had this entered our ports? Now, I know for a lot of you people, you might think this is being alarmist for the sake of being alarmist. But these ports, viewers, are very precious strategic assets. And I want to first begin with Abhijit Iyer Mitra, Senior Fellow of the IPCS. We also have with us Shashank Sareen, who is a Senior Fellow at the ORF, and someone I respect very much because of his strategic acumen. But let's get some questions in. Abhijit Iyer Mitra, how do you react? This incident raises more questions than it answers. Would you agree? How do you react? Or am I just being hyperbolic and creating a bit of a sensation here?
So, the first thing is, if anything is Chinese, I don't trust it, least of all explosive stuff. We've seen all the industrial accidents and things like that happen in China. There are international standards of transporting dangerous goods and things like that. We really don't know what this was transporting, except that it was highly flammable. The next thing is, sure, crews can go missing, unfortunately, if explosions happen, yes. The problem is, again, this is Chinese. Very often in the past, we've seen how explosions are used to, create disappearances for infiltration and things like that. I am taking this entire thing with great alarm personally. I will revise my assessment to one of complacency if and when the investigation is sorted out and it is found to be totally innocent.
Now, viewers, let me tell you the only reason where we've front flagged this story in such a dramatic fashion is because we have been told by highly placed government sources today that there is concern, deep concern, in the Indian establishment at the center. So that's one of the reasons why we were expecting some sort of clarity by the evening. We were promised that by around now there would be some clarity. I'm sure there's going to be some news. But Ayyar Mitra, the Chinese, you're wary of them, but they're also wary of India's expanded port capacities to hurt their maritime dominance. We've seen how much, the string of pearls, the Chinese have invested in that. They've tried to open ports all over. They're accurately going out there, actively trying to procure ports, or at least control of ports. They've sent ships to snoop on India to see what we're doing, to develop not just our capacities to enter the blue water, so to speak, and dominate the shipping lanes, trade lanes. Would you put it past them to undertake a misadventure to cripple India's port infrastructure? I'm not saying right now that this is exactly what has happened. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying in the future, could the Chinese be up to something like that?
Exactly right. So, the thing is, we first need to know what was on its manifest, because every ship coming into port has to declare its manifest. Sometimes they even get boarded by the Coast Guard just to check and see if there's particularly dangerous cargo, if all the security regulations have been followed and things. That in itself will tell you a lot. Had the combustible cargo been declared or not, number one. Number two, there is no such thing as a single purpose Chinese ship. Most Chinese ships that I know are used as covers for, snooping of some kind or the other, hydrographic survey, anything at all. So, the default setting for anything Chinese, out of sheer and abundant caution, should be one of zero trust.
Okay, let me open this up. I want to also bring in Sushant Sareen. Sushant Sareen, why do you think there's alarm tonight in government circles? And it was communicated to us, I can't name the person, but completely, I can only say that the person's credentials are unimpeachable. So why is this person taking it so seriously?
Rahul, accidents happen at sea, but when accidents happen with the kind of frequency they are happening, and given the backdrop against which they are happening, then obviously a lot of suspicions are going to arise. Now, it is entirely possible that this is actually an accident.
Yeah.
And it's an accident because of negligence, because of a variety of factors. But like Abhijit said, look, there will be a manifest of what was the containers that the ship was carrying when it reached Colombo. And then there would be another manifest of what were the kind of containers that were loaded on from Colombo. And whether certain safety precautions were kept in mind or they were violated. And then you have to know what was the next port of call. So I think there would be a lot of investigations going on, but it's only natural for people to start smelling a rat. Secondly, and I think, Rahul, we need to be extremely conscious of this fact. Look, as long as you were a namby-pamby country, 15th, 20th largest economy in the world, not assertive, you were the kind of people who always turned the other cheek. You would rather say India, Pakistan, bhai, bhai, hum to ek hi log hain, that kind of nonsensical bullshit that was going on all over. As long as you were doing all of that, you were the nice guys, you were not a threat to anybody. Once you start growing, you become the fourth largest economy in the world, you become assertive, you start developing new technologies, you start absorbing new technologies, you become part of international supply chains, etc., etc., etc. And you are seen also as a net security provider in the region. then you become a clear and present threat for other countries. And there is nothing extraordinary about this. If the Chinese are snooping on us, there is no reason why we should not be snooping in Chinese waters and seeing what Chinese ports are all about, what kind of naval and maritime infrastructure they have, what kind of deployments they make. We should be doing the same damn thing. We should be doing it with Pakistan. We should be doing it to Bangladesh. We should be studying all the hydrography around our region. We should be doing all of it ourselves, and I'm sure we would be doing some of it, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm
clearly,
sure, hope
this
so.
is to enter into as you grow bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And if you think that, we'll play the nice guy and we'll be loved by everybody, listen, in international relations, nobody is your friend and nobody loves you. They will do business with you because it's profitable for them, and they will deal with you if they are afraid of you. If they think you are a pushover, they will treat you like a pushover. So the choice is ours on how we need to pull up a. And frankly, Rahul, I think we also must recognize there are a lot of gaps in how we also approach security at the port level, for example.
That's true.
Yeah, chalta hai attitude. Chalta hai, yaar, theek hai, I know this guy. It's not a big deal. We need to be very, very clear about how we set up our protocols and our systems also if we are going to become the big guys and going to play the big boys game. Otherwise, these kind of things will keep happening.
These kind of things will keep happening. Viewers, I mean, I want to quickly, before I open this up to Major Jolly and Ambassador Vora, I just want to quickly go back to Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Mr. Mitra, let's examine it through a geopolitical and geo-economic lens. Sushant Sareen has just sort of talked about geoeconomics. Our ports are a direct threat to Chinese economic interests and the Belt and Road Initiative, which Ambassador Vora can tell us a lot more about. And there's a motive right there, isn't it? There's a motive right there.
So, the surprising thing about this, Rahul, is the fact that, Chinese ports usually tend to be more advanced than Indian ports, much more swanky. They're very good at building high-tech looking swanky stuff. The issue is almost every single Chinese commercial port that has come up has turned out to be an abject failure in terms of business. You look at Hambantota, it is not clearing its dues. You look at Gwadar and Ormara, on any given day, there is literally no ship out there of any commercial value. In this day and age, ports have to have an economic hinterland of at least about 30 to 80 billion dollars. A deep sea port needs to have an economic hinterland of about $80 billion in order to be sustainable, in order to make a profit. This is why Hambantota made no profit. The Chinese took it over and then militarized it. Gwadar and Ormara have always been military ports. Now, in this sense, Indian ports, they may not be that swanky, but they are not built without a cost-benefit analysis. There is always a cost-benefit analysis that goes in. They are almost always profitable. And that is why, even when India bids, we bid for very few ports abroad, Haifa being one of them in Israel, as you remember.
Yeah.
And the Chinese go out of their way to sink it because they do not want a model that becomes economically sustainable and prevents their takeover of contracts and ultimately a default and then takeover of the sovereignty of the port itself. So, they have employed many means. We saw what happened in Nigeria, somewhere in East Africa, I forget now, where they went on a sustained campaign against Indian companies building infrastructure out there.
That's
The
true.
other, it's a very short step away from active sabotage and blowing up something and claiming, oh, well, it was some equipment within the port that led to it, carelessness of the handling staff. Once you blow up lots of things, it becomes very easy to hide the evidence and the origin and attribute motives and things like that.
So that's a very important point. And Major Jolly and Ambassador, let me bring you in. Major Jolly, look, let's be honest here. We've just commissioned the Adani port. It's a major strategic asset. It poses a direct threat to Chinese interests, Chinese commercial interests along the BRI. These incidents are taking place in the vicinity of that port. I don't know if it's a coincidence. Certainly appears like it, but these things haven't happened. It's only after the Adani port is open that we've suddenly had 2 or 3 big incidents like this, and we've also had Chinese, snooping vessels coming uncomfortably close. You know all of this. What is going on here in your mind? When you see these pictures, are you beginning to now think there's an elevated, non-conventional threat here?
So, thanks, Rahul. Ian Fleming had a very famous quote, once it's happenstance, twice it's coincidence, and third time it's definitely enemy action. So, even the first two were actually building to the enemy action, so this cannot be disregarded, especially for the fact that we have a certain porous kind of a situation when it comes to security on coastal, especially coastal. We've been, because of the going on infiltration and terrorism, we've been pretty tight on J&K now, let's say. We do have checkpoints in Nepal and Myanmar, we have enough army, but our coastal areas, the shipping, the maritime zone, up to, all the ports, I've been to a lot of ports and there is actually not much that can happen or you can commit as far as security goes. Secondly, like the law says, everybody is innocent unless proven guilty. In investigation, everybody is guilty unless proven innocent. So if this ship, if this is the second time this is happening, I can assure you, you rarely find anything wrong with the manifest. When operations of these levels are planned, if there is something in it, and this is a pre-planned stuff, the manifest will be all right. There'll be chemicals which will, but there will be something somewhere that would have caused this explosion, which was pre-planned and pre-designated. Like, all the pilots had valid visas and pilot licenses before they flew into the World Trade Tower.
Yeah.
So when you are planning something of that magnitude, you don't leave tiny loopholes here and there that, that get identified. And thirdly, I'll say something that Abhijit said about Chinese ships being able to turn into, he said most of the ships can act as naval ships.
Yeah.
Actually, all the maritime ships can, commercial can act. It's a mandate in Chinese commercial navy also, and that is why at 200 times capacity of building than Americans, they are building all naval battleships.
Wow.
They are just, calling them commercial ships because the battle deck, the deck of the ship is by law supposed to be of standards of a warship.
Oh, wow.
So any ship moving around in the world is a potential naval ship.
And let me tell you, on that point, Major Jolly, let me tell you that I looked for the antecedents of this ship, where it's constructed, etc. You go anywhere on the net, you go to maritime sites, there's a block. You don't know. So it's now owned by some Taipei-based company, but we don't know where it was manufactured. We don't know, Sushant Sareen, the antecedents. It's cloaked. It's like absolutely someone has gone out of their way. And I've looked at other ships and you can find their antecedents, not on this one. I don't know why. What do you think?
No, look, obviously, if somebody is trying to do some hanky-panky, they're going to cover up their tracks. They will. All criminals cover up their tracks and all criminals also get found out.
Yes.
So you just need to dig a little deeper. If this ship was, look, where the ship is manufactured, I think is of interest, but Taiwan is friendly territory.
Yeah.
I don't expect anything untoward to happen from Taiwan. What matters is where exactly and what exactly was loaded onto the ship.
That's right.
You can, if you've rescued the crew, I'm sure you can.
No, I mean, in fact, Mr. Sareen, just look at what happened a few days back, Ukraine, containers, and Ambassador Vora, I know I'm coming to you. I beg your indulgence. I'm just going to come out to you. But Sushant Sareen, you remember what happened? Ukraine sends these containers across the border. They open up miraculously, out flies drones, and there's mayhem.
So, Rahul, look, a ship blowing up in a new port would not have crippled India's foreign trade.
Yeah.
But what would have happened is that it would have been plastered all over the world. Indian shipping is unsafe. Indian port handling is a problem, etc., etc. You know how that narrative is built up.
Yes.
And there would be enough, Trojan horses. If you're talking about them, there are enough fifth columnists within the country who would actually be, because they get all kinds of fellowships abroad, they would be more than happy to peddle that particular line. You go for lecturerships in American universities and stuff like that. So a lot of these characters would be more than happy to do this. So I again, I am reserving judgment right now. I'll wait for further investigations. But if there is some hanky-panky going on, then one of the objectives could be to try and blow it up in a new port, blame it on port handling, blame it on how traffic is being handled, blaming on how
I mean, there
is
are
being,
infinite
etc.
narratives that can be spun around to discredit what is now a burgeoning sector. Ambassador Vora, let me just quickly read out a few things to you. Now, these are things that I've been told, channels been told that this ship was carrying, but this is off record right now, as in it's not been put out formally by the government or by sources. They're lithium batteries, phosphorus pentoxide, naphthalene crude, malic anhydride, bipyridinium pesticide, liquid toxic, hexamethylene, discocyanate, resin solution, phosphoric acid solution, diacetonone, alcohol, ammonium metavanadate, and ethyl chloroformate. I mean, you name any chemical, it's there. It's there, Ambassador. It's there. This is problematic.
Well, thank you very much. Pleasure to be with you and to learn from you always on your amazing channel, and you yourself, and of course, Mr. Mitra, Major Jolly, and Mr. Serene. Their combined knowledge is infinitely greater than mine. I would look at it in three ways, having known that country and worked closely. Number one, what is the purpose of this? What are the Chinese trying to do? And as you have rightly pointed out, Mr. Mitra, Dr. Serene, as well as Major Jolly, they are testing us. They're trying to see what our reflexes are in a situation like this. And all that rubbish that it is carrying, it's totally hazardous material. There's no question if government of India is worried, then these tribes are trying to sink all this stuff. It's probably deliberate. It's probably deliberately being sunk. It's being jettisoned. It's being whatever that ship. And the idea is that we try and pollute the waters as much as we can. But that's a very small, may I just say, it's not something that's going to damage our foreign trade enormously. But what is happening, what is of concern, as all my colleagues have said, that our maritime security, we've been so far focusing on land security, so far focusing on air security. Maritime security by the sea, because 90% of our trade goes by sea, that has to be enhanced. And I believe it is being done. So we have all the agencies being formed to work on this. China is obsessed. I have no doubt in my mind. The Bilk and Rob initiative, sorry, what do you call it? Belt and something initiative. Yeah, they rob everybody. Yeah. That's deader than the dodo of Mauritius. There's no question about it. It's dead. It's gone. It's finished. I mean, Ping Pong doesn't even talk about it anymore. Otherwise, every second day he would be yelling from the roofs of Beijing, BRI, BRI, America should join that, and Chile should join that, and the moon should join that. Nobody talks about it anymore because he's in trouble himself. You know about the riots, even as we speak, that are going on in China. There are people out on the streets demonstrating, and the Liberation Army, which people hope will liberate China from the Communist Party, that is on the street shooting up these characters. So my own feeling, sir, at this point of time is that we will look at this very carefully, all the nonsense that it's carrying. Where China is trying to divert attention away from the disaster that is the BRI, these are little pinpricks. But the material is hazardous, and we cannot trust China. This just goes to prove yet again, sir, China is not going to accept India's rights. You have said so yourself. All of us agree on that. Yeah. He is going to do his utmost to say that, look, I am the king. India is at best a distant second. He is worried about the rate at which we are growing. He's worried about what we did in Operation Sindhu. He's very concerned about India's acceptability around the world. Nobody trusts China. Nobody wants China. Let me conclude by saying, whatever he's up to, it'll come out. But today in the world, and I know this, I'm special advisor in some countries, China is suspected. India is respected, sir.
Okay, well, that, of course, perception issue, viewers. This is not a perceived threat. This is a threat. China is a threat, Major Jolly. China is a threat. Indian ports are sitting ducks. We know this. We know that the shipping route or the ship route or maritime route was used even by the 2611 terrorists. We know that. And they came through. It wasn't even, I mean, they just came through. And we believe that those avenues are still open, wide. Just the other day, we apprehended huge drugs haul at the Adani port. That could have been an explosive haul. It came through. It slipped through. Let's be honest. So how do we preempt a threat from the sea? What do we do? This is serious.
So, Rahul, one quick thing. When you were reading the manifest, there were three things that stood out for me. One is lithium-ion batteries, right? They are banned in cargo by air because of a famous 2010 crash that happened in US because of the battery. Explosive stuff, highly explosive stuff. Secondly, phosphorus. Phosphorus used in all fertilizers, all pesticides, all that. Again, highly explosive. So, third was naphthalene. So there are other chemicals also, but what I'm trying to draw your attention to is that the fact that you put all of them together, nobody bothered to think that these are three highly inflammable and explosive stuff. Let me send them separately. So you put them all together, that one compounds the another, and even if one thing goes wrong, there is no stopping it.
Yeah.
So if
Clearly.
you want to really check it out, there is enough evidence here. And coming back to maritime security, firstly, we need to, I think, India is now on a very good track to upgrade its navy. Finally, navy is getting its due. What was pending for many decades. But the Coast Guard needs a bigger push, I would say. The primary maritime security is under Coast Guard responsibility is there. And thirdly, the air reconnaissance has to step up. We have very limited resources when it comes to that. When you gave example of 2611, had we had, let's say, 10x or 15x or 20x more, the air and water patrolling, maybe it would not have happened. And finally, it all comes back to the intelligence gathering. Our int gathering efforts have to step up, and they have to originate from places which are targets where we want to know what is happening. I think we need to get into the big boys game and start focusing on intelligence gathering more.
Okay, now viewers, these pictures, let me tell you, are just from a few hours back. This is just before sunset today. So it's almost going to be 2.5 days since this fire has been blazing, and it's just getting bigger and bigger, and now we're being told that this ship is going to come apart. It's just going to melt onto itself and go right down, and it's going to release all those toxins in the water, and already there are advisories that are being put out. So there are many ways of disrupting things, viewers, many ways. This is an example, viewers, of what can happen. This is a scenario that is emerging right in front of our eyes of what can happen. We have to very carefully look at this, learn from this, and then preempt this. This is very, very crucial. If this had been in port, imagine in the Adani port or even in Navashehra port, this would have been a catastrophe. That port would have been out of commission for months altogether. And we can't afford that anymore. We can't afford that anymore. The economic price is very, very high, viewers, at a time like this, especially when you're in a military standoff, so to speak, almost, with Pakistan. You don't know the dirty tricks, the Trojans. You don't know where you're going to be hit from. So we're expecting now a government statement. I hope it comes sooner than later. We'll keep you updated on this story, viewers. But I want to move on because, yes, there is gloom, but it's lifting. And don't let the negatives get to you, all the negativists get to you. India is rising, Bharat's time is dawning, so much so that even the sky is no longer the limit. Yes, viewers, tomorrow a 41-year-long wait is about to end at 5:45 in the evening. Glue yourself to the TV like you did when India soft landed on the moon's south pole. And that happened 2 years ago, viewers, around this time. You remember this? It was a big, big moment. And you were so proud of your country. Well, tomorrow is going to be another one of those days. It's going to be massive, absolutely massive moment for India. Indian astronaut and group captain Shubhanshu Shukla is set to inspire an entire generation as he becomes the first Indian to travel to space. And in just a short while, we're going to have a full window of the best guests tonight, viewers. And then we'll go to one of them. We'll first show him amongst all the others, so you get a sense of the informed conversation we're going to have. And then we're going to go to a guest who, when one speaks to, one feels very virtuous, viewers. But I'll come to that. Now, Group Captain Shukla, viewers, is bound for the International Space Station, the ISS. He's going to be the first Indian. Now, we've had Indian origin astronauts there. Sunita Williams, who spent a record amount of time on the ISS, but never an Indian. The last time we celebrated an Indian in space was in 1984, and he went to the Russian Mir station. Can you remember what you were doing then? I was 9 years old. And in school, when the radio carried a special broadcast, it announced that Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma, aboard a Russian rocket, has become the first Indian to reach space. And then we saw the iconic footage and heard the unforgettable conversation. And I'm going to show you a clip of that conversation between Indira Gandhi and Wing Commander Sharma. I will never forget that. You will never forget that. Let's just play that clip. If we have it, it'd be great to hear it once again.
ऊपर से भारत कैसा दिखता है आपको?
जी मैं बगैर किसी झिझक के कह सकता हूँ कि सारे जहां से अच्छा दिखता है।
Sare jahan se acha. Those words still give me goosebumps, viewers. And Group Captain Shukla is aware of the weight of history, and he's also aware that he will be a mascot for 1.4 billion Indians. Yes. And he says, I go into space, I'm not just carrying instruments and equipment, I'm carrying the hopes and dreams of a billion hearts. Listen to him. This is just before he takes off, viewers. A few days back, he spoke these words. He says, let us keep their prayers close to our heart, listen in to his message to the youth of India, because that is who we really want to inspire.
It is my sincere endeavor through my mission to inspire an entire generation back home in the country. I want to use this opportunity to ignite curiosity among kids. Even if this story, my story, is able to change one life, it would be a huge success for me.
Now, viewers, this is very important, because that generation was so inspired that it produced brilliant scientists who built ISRO. And I'm talking about that moment in '84. Now is another similar inspiring moment, and space is not the final frontier for Shukla, or at least the ISS. He's going to be part of the Gaganyaan mission. So this entire mission is geared towards giving him first-hand experience to learn the tricks of the trade, learn to fly a spacecraft through space, understand the aerodynamics, understand the workings. You can try it all sitting in simulators, but till you do the real thing. And he's, of course, a great test pilot. He's done the Sukhoi 30 MKI, the MiG-21s, the Jaguar jets. He's done it all. But this will be a real experience, and he's going to be one of the pilots. So he's selected in 2019 for ISRO's first astronaut training program, trained at Yuri Gagarin Cosmoport Center in Russia, continued training at the ISRO's astronaut facility in Mangaluru, set to become the first Indian to visit Axiom 4 mission. This is a private mission, viewers, let me tell you. But Axiom 4 to take the first astronauts from India, Poland, Hungary to the ISS, and all of this cutting-edge experiment in space will give Indian scientists who are building up for Gaganyaan first-hand insights. He's going to come back and he's going to tell you all. He's also going to be critically examining his own body's response, and all that input will be fed back. So when we send our astronauts out there in a few years, these biological studies will help in giving background material to build stamina in space for our own scientists. And tomorrow, viewers, I told you 5:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time is liftoff from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And let's go and open this up. It will be on a SpaceX Dragon spaceship, so that's going to be very, very interesting. And I want to first look, I mean, when I look at the person on our screens, the former ISRO chairman, Mr. Somnath, I get very emotional, because this is, you were part of, and I want to just take you straight on, because you were part of history that redefined what it is to even put people on the moon. We went to a part of the moon that no one else has done, and it gave India, it happened at the same time the Prime Minister was abroad, as you know. He was amongst the world's leading powers, and what a day it was, because just the day before that the Russians had failed in that same endeavor. So first of all, just put this into perspective for us, sir. Salute to you, Dr. Somnath, sir. salute to you. Just put this into perspective for us. A, this moment, the significance of this moment and what it's going to lead on to.
I believe that after 41 years, we are sending one more Indian to space. It's something to celebrate. I think it is a great moment in the history of our country. So I look forward to that on a moment of great value, which is launching an Indian to space. Though it is happening in a rocket, in a spacecraft and going to a space station of US, but this is going to be very, very important for us technologically, as well as making a statement to ourselves, to our own nation, that we are very serious about this matter. So, to contrast between the two events that happened in way back in when Commander Rakesh Sharma went and now, there is a big difference. I think this is something which is very important. At the moment when Rakesh Sharma went, there was no Gaganyaan program. There was no human spaceflight program. The space program of India was not at a level that we can even dream of at that moment. But today we have already defined a human spaceflight program. The Gaganyaan program is already on, and not only Gaganyaan program on, we also defined our own program to build space station, Bharati Antariksha Station. So when such a program is going on, and an Indian going at this moment has its own significance, because it's a definition, or it's a statement. I think this is the significance of this mission, and I'm looking greatly excited about the outcome of this mission, so that it fits into our long-term program.
So Dr. Somnath, just break this down for us. We're obviously not taking our own rocket up. We're sort of going along with somebody else. Some people call it piggybacking, etc., etc. But this is not just about putting Group Captain Subhanshu in space. This is a lot more, isn't it? Because you're going to have many learnings from this, as you were suggesting. What are these learnings?
Definitely, I agree with that. See, there is a certain amount of learning, and this learning is not a technology transfer. I think you need to understand here. This learning comes out of people's experience. I think experience is something very, very important. See, while we were ideating the Gaganyaan program, talking about human spaceflight, Rakesh Sharma was an integral part of our discussions, and he contributed so much for our definition of the Gaganyaan program, what all elements are required to be built into it. And we have only one person to go to. There was no one else. There was only one astronaut of India whom we can discuss this. And also you should understand that the whole knowledge about flying human to space has been created elsewhere. It is not created in India yet. And we are in the process of creating that in a part of the knowledge. So we need people who will be able to assist us, to help us to build a Gaganyaan. And how it's going to come? It's not going to come in, if you want to buy that knowledge, it's not going to come. There are no astronauts of another nation is going to come and sit with us, helping us design the Gaganyaan. It has to come out of our own experience. But then we were designing the Gaganyaan for the last 4 or 5 years. And how we were designing based on whatever published literature, knowledge available in the open forum, and our own ideas and inputs. But it has its own limitations. So we may do a better job sometimes, because we may start afresh and do a fantastic job. That's a different matter. But if you really are fed with inputs from various sources, which we have been trying a great deal, and we have been trying, and we have been getting little bit, but then somebody who has actually flown in a modern craft like this, the inputs are tremendously valuable for us. And that's where the role of Shubhanshu Shukla and the person, the experienced pilot and the astronaut of an India really matters. And I am sure when he is back in India, we will be greatly benefited.
Greatly benefited. Well, Dr. Somnath, we're looking forward to having you tomorrow at the same time, because I'm sure we're going to be very successful, and we're going to once again carve a niche for ourselves globally. So thank you for taking the time out. I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you and looking back on this launch tomorrow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor. And salute to you, and salute to ISRO, and salute to the great minds who are firing up our imaginations, especially of the next generation. Now, I have three very special guests with us. We've got Dr. Ayman Jahangir, who's a commercial astronaut, fantastic astronaut who's been up there. We have also Professor Somak Ray Chaudhary, who's the astrophysicist and Vice Chancellor at Ashoka University. And we have the incomparable, I have to say this, a person we greatly admire, Dr. Amitabh Ghosh, space scientist and the member of NASA's Mars Exploration Rover mission. So we have a lot of intellectual capital in this studio today. And I want to begin with you first, if I may, Professor and Dr. Amitabh Ghosh. This is important, isn't it? This is symbolically also extremely important. Yes, many people will say that it could have been us going on our own steam, etc., etc. But okay, we always do this very well, don't we? We take things in steps, small steps. Giant leap for ISRO, small step for India. It's giant leap for ISRO. So just put this into perspective. This moment, just this moment first.
Right. So there are two angles of looking at it. So it's not at all emotional. So one is we are in a very different era from 41 years ago. So we are in an era where the cost of space flight has decreased by maybe 95%. And so human space flight is about to take off. The US is planning to land on the moon. China is planning to land on the moon. Then Jeff Bezos is trying to set up a lunar base. And all this is within reach because guess what? The cost has gone down by 95%. So that is one for us. So if India wants to be a player, and there are just five countries in the world who are even in the reckoning. So it's really a very select club. So India is trying to develop capability in spaceflight. So that is the second story. The second story is beyond this launch of Shubhanshu Shukla, which is incredible. But the other part is, of course, Gaganyaan. So India is trying to go from robotic spaceflight to human spaceflight, which means hugely more complex systems, maybe 5 to 10 times the cost. So you are sending a rover to the moon. Now you're sending some human being to the moon, maybe 5 years from now. You cannot risk a failure. Somebody is going to die. So everything has to be super, the electrical system has to be super reliable. And then there's another thing. What if the electrical system fails? Then you need a backup system. So you need something which in engineering you call redundancy. So that is the second point. So this is India's jump into the human space flight club, which is huge. The third point is, so Dr. Somnath was saying, right, it's different from Rakesh Sharma. And here's the difference in a very layman's terms. Say you had you borrowed a friend's car. And that was 1984. You went for a joyride in your friend's car. Now this Mr. Shukla is going to go out in a friend's car, but next year he's going to buy his own car. So it's very, very relevant. So whatever he learns from that goes back to the Gaganyaan engineers, and maybe there's a whole human to machine interaction, right, with the spacecraft, right? So there's a huge things to be learned there, and it's not very realistic to predict what you will learn, but that is the context as to why this is more than just an astronaut going to the space station.
Okay, so Dr. Jahangir, what does it take for an astronaut to go to the space station? You've been there, you've done that. I want to understand from you because look, you have all these simulators now. You get into one, you can pretty well figure out things for yourself. Many people say that it's even become easier for space tourists, for lay people. We just had a mission with 4 ladies on it who were not remotely related to being astronauts or NASA or any program such as this. It was just people, pop stars, this, that, the other. So why is it necessary to travel before you actually embark on manned missions? What's the difference?
Well, thank you for having me here. I would say that for someone like Captain Shukla, it's very important, particularly with the plans for ISRO to have the Gaganyaan missions coming up. So it's one thing to train, as we can all imagine. You can train and imagine going on, a parachute jump, for instance. But it's very different to actually experience it if you're going to go skydiving. And this is the same, but even more important, because for someone like Captain Shukla, he's going to have to not only go on this mission and experience it, but he's going to bring all of that knowledge back and all of that expertise back to train not only the future astronauts through ISRO, but also to inform how things work. You know, if you get to talking to astronauts, you'll find out that there are things that the engineers design that think will work well in space. And then once you get up there, you realize that was not a good idea. And it'll be similar for Captain Shukla. He's going to go up there. He's going to actually do hands-on experience. He's going to learn what it's like to live in space for a few weeks, what a space station should have and how that should operate. And he's going to bring all of that expertise back to India to help grow the program.
Okay, so I just have to ask you this question because, you know, you see a lot of science fiction. I love science fiction. I watch the film Gravity, etc. You see people juddering as they go up in space in that rocket. Does that happen? Is it real? What do you feel? Do you even get to sleep the night before you go? I mean, what is it like for you?
No, I mean, I don't think anyone sleeps the night before, unless maybe it's their third or fourth time. But I imagine even then they don't sleep because you're sitting on a rocket. I mean, at the end of the day, it's pretty amazing. And when that engine roars, it's a living, breathing machine. And you just feel the force and the power of it as it takes you and lifts you up out of everything we've known here on Earth. So, no, I don't think anyone's sleeping tonight in preparation for this launch.
Do you think you can't train for that? I mean, is that not something that it's not simulated on Earth? It's completely different?
Imagine this. Did you have a good night's rest before, I don't know, your first major broadcast here or your wedding day? Yeah. Maybe, but probably you were excited. Yeah. It wasn't that you were nervous, but it's just the anticipation of finally the stream coming true and that you will be able to go to space. One of fewer than 750 people ever to have gone to space is pretty incredible if you think over the last 50, 60 years we've been doing this, how few people still have gone.
That's right.
So, yes, you can train, but at the end of the day, this is an exciting day for Captain Shukla and for India and for the space program all over the Earth, that we're sending more people from more nations into space. And I think it's very exciting times.
Well, let me also get in Professor Somak Ray Chaudhary. Thank you for being with us, Professor. What is the Axiom 4 mission? Why does it matter? Let me just ask you that question. Why does it matter? Baseline question, layman question.
It matters because India is poised to enter not just the space age where astronauts become important, human astronauts, but also the space industry, which is very large at the moment and expanding very fast all over the world. And India is kind of behind on the scene, even though India is one of the biggest superpowers in space. India doesn't participate very largely in the industry. And this is a demonstration of India's capabilities of how India can be a major player in the space industry.
Oh, that's an interesting point, isn't it, Dr. Ghosh? I was reading the statistics. 2% is our contribution really to the launch industry, so to speak, the space industry. That could take a quantum leap after this, could it not?
So that is a different, actually. So that's a more complex question. So for that, so it's important to distinguish between launch industry and spacecraft missions. So launch is just a vehicle which launches something in orbit. So there, it means that, well, do you have the correct strength of the launch vehicle? So we mark it by how much mass can it put out in low Earth orbit, for example. So and is there demand for that here? So for example, you can outsource stuff, but for example, if there was a provider in India, it cannot provide launch services to the US because of ITAR. So you cannot access that market. So does India have a local market of, say, communication stations or TV stations that want communications? So that's a different question. But overall, the field of space is huge. And having the human spaceflight capability is, you can argue it's important. On the other side, you can also say robotic spaceflight is important. But in an era where I think astronauts are headed back to the moon, where countries will go and land. So it would be terrific if India had their own capability to go back and land. And who knows, there's another interesting thing which Dr. Rajchandra brought up, is in industry, right? The industry is ramping up. That's what he said. One of the things is, who knows where space tourism is going to go? So maybe that is another frontier, and if that takes off, then that will be $1 trillion business. And what you just mentioned, that 5 ladies going up, That is the space, right? It's the space tourism market, but it's a very different demarcation. That's the suborbital market. That flight where the ladies went up was 10 minutes. This is 2 weeks. So this is the orbital market. And then you can, of course, go to the moon even beyond that. But this market is opening up. If you were able to spend 1 crore of rupees in your lifetime, once in your lifetime, would you go to space? A lot of people might.
Yeah, a lot of people might. And that's exactly what I meant to say, that's very important, because remember, viewers, ISRO is very cost effective, and that's the beauty of it. I don't know what makes it so. I think it's just smarts, Indian smarts, but it's very, very cost effective. Now, Professor, I just want to come back to you very quickly. I read your piece today, fantastic piece. You said this launch will set the technological template for Gaganyaan. Now, I want you to explain this a little bit more.
So Gaganyaan is very different from any other thing that India has done so far. Once humans come into the picture of human astronauts, it becomes an order of magnitude more difficult than and costly compared to anything else that India has sent. And so India's ambition of involving astronauts in various activities in space, it starts with Gaganyaan. It starts with not just showing capability of sending astronauts into space, but also building India's own Antariksh space station involving humans, and then building bases on the moon and so on and so forth. And this is just the beginning of it. And I think India has sent an astronaut in space before. Rakesh Sharma went, but that was an isolated event. That was also just a kind of heroic moment of sending an Indian astronaut into space.
Tomorrow, viewers, history is going to be rewritten, and it's going to be rewritten in favor of the group captain, in favor of 140 crore Indians, and it's going to be a big day. And I look forward to all our panelists to join us tomorrow once again, to look back on that moment, and it's going to take place at 5:30, so we're going to be live. Please do join us. And thank you once again, Professor and Mr. Ayman, and also, of course, Mr. Ghosh. Thank you very much. I'll take a very short break. Vantage coming up with Palki Sharma. Don't go away.
Dangerous. This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Do remember, this takes us back to Operation Sindoor and the kind of damage India inflicted on Pakistan's military infrastructure. News coming in, we're learning Pakistan's Noor Khan Air Base, which is considered a critical node in its military infrastructure, sustained significant damage in India's precision strikes during Operation Sindoor, and there's more proof of the same that we've managed to extract. Intelligence sources confirm that Indian strikes targeted key infrastructure, including runways, radar stations, hangars, and underground fortified zones. Satellite imagery reveals the destruction of a 7,000 square feet operation complex and command vehicles, as well as crater impacts near areas believed to store sensitive or nuclear-linked assets. Pakistan Army has attempted to downplay the damage, but intelligence agencies backed by high-resolution satellite imagery confirms that around 20% of Pakistan's Air Force operational infrastructure may have been degraded in the strike. In a big revelation, Pakistani security analyst Imtiaz Gul also alleged that the airbase functions effectively as an American fortress, off limits even to Pakistan Army personnel. He cited repeated sightings of US aircraft, undisclosed cargo, and restricted access to Pakistan Army officers. Going across to Akanksha Swaroop for a quick update. Akanksha, now military bases like the Noor Khan base have suffered significant damage, and the Indian Armed Forces in fact have been putting out significant proof of the same, but this one is also big in itself. Pakistani security analyst Imtiaz Gul alleging that the airbase functions effectively as an American fortress. What do you make of this big remark that's coming from the
Right.
analyst.
Krithween, it's also important to talk about the source. Imtiaz Gul is a renowned security analyst based in Pakistan, and he's been reporting on security and defense for quite a while. So when he is saying this has also been, Noor Khan has been a fortress for American defense and that they have access to Noor Khan since 2001, that's big news coming in and straight from the horse's mouth. Gul's statement, of course, has exposed long-standing rumors of US operational access, which he has stated goes back all the way to 2001 for Afghan war logistics and drone operations. Perhaps that's one reason also now, if you were to piece together the US President Donald Trump's own silence when it comes to condemning terror being harbored by Pakistan so actively, and that has been a sharp contrast to Trump's previous presidency, where he was absolutely not supportive of the then Prime Minister Imran Khan. When they had met, he had categorically told him to destroy these terror networks, but the silence this time around of the US President has been deafening, Krithween. So important to also highlight the information that we are sharing right now. This is, of course, a CNN mega exclusive. These Pakistan air bases that have borne the kind of damages coming straight from Pakistani security analysts. Remember, Pakistan was trying to downplay it at a time when our multi-party delegations have returned after sharing all the information about Operation Sindoor. This is the kind of information that now talks about how the damage has already degraded 20% of Pakistan's air force infrastructure. Remember, this is coming on a day when Pakistan's budget will be allocated, especially when it comes to defense spending. We can also expect now Pakistan to take this entire conflict in view and increase their budget spending. But Pakistan's army is, of course, trying to downplay the damage that was brought to their air bases in the interim night of 9th and 10th of May. What I can tell you is that the base's proximity to nuclear facilities has heightened security sensitivities, potentially delaying external access for clearance. Satellite imagery, as we had already talked about during Operation Sindoor, had gone on to indicate how close to 7,000 square feet of land near the strike sites had been damaged. Indian attacks have severely hit Saab area. AWACS, this is a strategic location 25 kilometers from Islamabad. It's also adjacent to the Pakistani army headquarters and also the nuclear command center. So this, of course, entire damage is also symbolic. It's not just hit the morale of the Pakistani Air Force bases, but the entire Pakistan army. It symbolizes a direct breach of Pakistan's core defense systems. The base has also Turkish Bayraktar TB2 drones and has served as the nerve center for the Air Mobility Command increased operational bases. Now with, we are also looking at the kind of debris management that is all on. There are heaps of rubbles, as has already been confirmed by various Pakistani senators who are going and doling out interviews to international news publications and various channels. They've gone on to talk about how various air bases have been reduced to a state of rubble. There's debris, and Pakistan's military initially, of course, as we have been talking about, has downplayed it. But the satellite evidence is something they cannot deny, and Indian strikes have also exposed these critical gaps in Pakistan's air defense, which shows its inability to intercept ballistic missiles that have targeted these high value sites that have gone all deep inside. But most importantly, the fact that Noor Khan was being used by the United States as a base since 2001 goes on to talk about how perhaps this was a Frankenstein which was created by the West, primarily the United States, as Khwaja Asif also maintained that Pakistan was doing the West's dirty.
Hello, Namaskar. This is First Post and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Day 5 of the California riots.
There are Marines in Los Angeles and the riots are spreading. The images are quite dramatic. The politicians are looking to make the most of it. California Governor Newsom versus US President Trump.